Okay, time for my one of my popular to no one political views. In this case, over the Roe versus Wade situation. This is something I've been considering, chattering about it every now and then, intervals. Because I'm in kind of a bind with this. Obviously, in terms of, my own belief structure and everything, if you follow me at all, I absolutely believe in a right to abortion in terms of that is what should be, right? Someone should not be forced to have a parasite grow within them. And from a societal point of view, the thing we most want to not do is we want to limit human production. From a worldwide view, the worst thing that's happening in terms of global warming and et cetera and the like is an overabundance of humans. Too many humans mean too much energy being used. It means too many meat products that are going to cause issues there. There's just a whole slew of problems, all of which would be significantly reduced by significantly reducing the population. And of course, one of the reasons why I was hoping the pandemic would be a 90% kill or something. Just something amazing on that level. An attempt by the ecosystem to right the balance and rid the earth of this really horrible infestation of humans. So in no way can you say that, I'm an anti-abortion person. I'm also not a pro-life person. I'm probably an anti-life person when it comes to it. And that doesn't limit itself to human life for that matter. But that's for different reasons. That has to do with suffering. That life means suffering and all living things will suffer. And that's not a good thing. And that the quicker that you can shorten or eliminate that suffering, the better for everything. But in sort of an abstract moral sort of way, as opposed to something that I act on. I don't go off trying to save people from their own misery. I can't even manage it for myself. But on another level, this idea of forcing someone to go through this massive bodily, changes and all these other factors just to bring a baby into life. There's something really hideous about that. Now, on the other side, while I'm anti-life, if you wish, rather than pro-choice, I do not like the idea of China's one-child policy. First of all, it's not sufficient, probably. We need a quicker drop if we really wanted to look at things, and they have problems because of it, but that's something else. That's problems because humanity must always expand in order to increase the markets and whatnot. But instead, there they end up sterilizing women to prevent them from having children, and I don't know if they also do so with men. I think they only sterilize the women, of course, because everything is that way, isn't it? Everything. It's always about controlling women's bodies somehow. But there's something, just revolting about that kind of enforced procedure on anyone. and I, I can't really support that. Um, in fact, what I believe we should be doing is incentivizing either abortions or even more so, uh, voluntarily sterilization in the sense of like, you know, getting your I can't even remember the word for it, the vas deferens, but there's a more popular uh, uh, word for snipping a guy, and it's such a minor procedure and whatnot. That you know, I'm cool on that idea. I'm cool on idea of incentivizing people not to have children at all. Make that a broad thing. What we certainly shouldn't do is be giving people credits for having more children, or trying to encourage a growth in population. That's inimical to our own survival in any kind of pleasant sort of way. But putting all that aside, my feelings have always been strongly like, wow, women should really have a choice not to have this thing growing in them. If you can take it out safely without hurting anyone, and it can live on its own, great. If you cannot, if it can't be extracted and kept alive, well, then it's an invader. It's an invasive thing in someone's body, and they should be able to dispose of it as they wish. But the problem with Roe versus Wade is that legally it is bullshit. This whole privacy right thing was made up whole cloth. It's not there. It's just not there. And if there had been a desire to put something like that in place, a constitutional amendment would be a perfectly reasonable way to do it. It's even kind of tenuous to say that it's a privacy issue at all. But the real... Justice Ginsburg, was arguing at one point, while she was still alive, I think, that it would have been better to do this under the due process, which would still have been a stretch, but at least due process is part of the 14th Amendment. They're kind of going off of an et cetera type thing in order to try to come up with this privacy right. And there's two problems with that. One, the privacy right itself isn't there. You really have to be stretching to put that in place. And secondly, it's kind of a stretch to say that what you do to your body is a privacy issue. If that's allowable, then what does that open up in terms of like drug use, for example? I feel like if you're gonna open up that privacy concept towards what you can do to your own body, then you should be allowed to largely take whatever the hell you want and alter yourself however you want, chemically and whatever. And the whole argument, I mean, yeah, you can make this push that, yeah, no, it's not the act that's illegal, but actually the drugs that are illegal. So like, it's not specifically illegal to say shoot up shoot up heroin. It's illegal to possess the heroin. And yeah, I see that. You could make equally, though, difficult, and Casey kind of tried to put a damper on this, but you could have put equally problematic rules in place that made the tools necessary to perform an abortion illegal, if that's the line you want to take, and that would have been a kind of tricky way to go about it. The states instead started putting these horrible, limitations where they treated abortion like just as this much more difficult procedure than it actually usually is, and required all kind of like hospital privileges and building requirements and such not, that just made it so that it was very difficult to run a clinic, and for no real health purpose at all, as well as things that were meant to try to change the mind of the patient. Forced ultrasounds and stuff like that. We're just trying to move the needle and reduce the number of abortions by kind of terrorizing and making things difficult, and then of course the shorter the timeline that it is. And again, if you want to induce a miscarriage or whatever, and you think you can save the fetus at that point and grow it, hey, more to you, you can have it, man. I would have no problem with that. But again, the difficulty for me is with a moral stance that has always been that, abortion should be safe and legal. And once you get past a certain point, hey, maybe it makes sense to start limiting the scope of an allowable abortion. Where the procedure gets difficult enough that and you're close to a viability type standard where you'd say, if the health of either party is seriously endangered, and I don't know what that should be. The maternal complications rate in the U.S. is surprisingly bad, and as somebody pointed out, and especially in people of color, and I can attest to healthcare just sucks when you get into areas that are predominantly lower income and inner city and whatnot. I'm not sure why. Some of it, just from anecdotal personal experience, comparing like an inner city Phoenix hospital and the way they treated me to a suburban Scottsdale hospital and how they treated me with the same problem. I don't know if they thought I was going in there trying to get drugs or whatever, but if it permeated at that level, I'm not shocked that it does at others, and the numbers certainly represent that, race is a significant indicator of how good a medical care you're going to get across the board, as with so many things in life. Even to some extent accounting for location and income. So, there's prejudices that are playing underneath that we don't even know about, perhaps, or can't quite put our finger on. Yeah, this is why it's happening. But it's happening, it's baked into the system. But yeah, the legal arguments on Roe in favor of it were just so shoddy, and it very clearly appears to be, something that should have been thrown 10th Amendment, It should be left to the states unless the federal government did something about it. Now, there's all this noise about the Democrats trying to get, you know, a pro-abortion law passed or something along that lines. I don't think that'll float. I do not think that'll float. I cannot think of I can't think of how you can justify that inside the constitutional framework, and certainly not a way that would hold up to today's Supreme Court. You would really need to have something that was ironclad to get through the current court. And the only way to do that is an amendment. It is the only way if you want to make this a national right. On the other hand, I think attempts to prevent people from going out of state to get an abortion or from ordering the drugs and performing it on themselves, I think those are going to be harder fights to have. States are going to make them illegal. There's no question. The legislatures in a number of states are just so constructed to follow. Well, first of all, they're skewed Republican in a lot of cases. Even states that are not exceedingly Republican states, and they've gotten their little hooks in to make sure that, you know, as long as we're in this highly partisan situation, that important factor of being exceedingly pro-life is vital to winning the all-important primaries in these gerrymandered districts. And, you know, that's just the world we live in right now. So you're gonna see those going up. That would be something that I think the federal government could act to protect. Something along the lines of using interstate commerce to ensure that you can obtain these drugs regardless of the legality in the state. I'm not safely and confidentially or whatever. I don't know. It might be a hard fight for that as well. But yeah, the truth is that you know, this is over unless somehow the Supreme Court can go even further. This is my real fear. My fear isn't so much destroying other privacy rights findings. Logically, those should all go. They really should. But I don't know that there's all that much of a push to do so. But I would be a lot more worried about the possibility of having the court, since they already did this, by putting a certain viability argument in place, of basically stating that life begins at conception and that and enabling through the civil rights laws, because you can violate someone's civil rights by killing them, by basically making abortion illegal throughout the U.S. From conception, which of course means IUDs are out too, right? So yeah, you know, it's that's a worry. I feel like that would be a stretch for the court to make, but a stretch that I would not be surprised at least 4 of the justices supporting, and possibly 5. Anyway, thought I'd chatter about that a little bit. Not a lot else to say. I'm waiting for answers to some rules questions before I can start my Galicia video, so I'll probably go play some video games or something. I really kind of just want to start this up, so maybe I'll have answers. Cheers.